Hello, my name is Malcolm Skinner and I'm a solicitor in the LexisNexis Private Client PSL team. Today I'm joined by Stuart Hatcher, a partner in the corporate department of PwC Legal. We'll be talking about some of the current challenges that private client should be thinking about. So, Stuart, what will we be covering today?
Well, Malcolm, you can appreciate there's quite a lot we could talk about, but I think I'd probably like to briefly cover three main areas.
Fair enough.
First would be wills and planning for that time when you might not be able to work, the importance of succession planning, and then finally the increasingly topical point of immigration and the challenge of getting a UK visa these days.
Right, okay, so why make a will or think about when you might not be able to work?
Well, I suppose most private client advisors will already be thinking about wills with any private clients they have. Having a will makes good sense. It enables the individual to decide how they want their assets to be allocated and allows for the orderly distribution of their estate, and might allow them to undertake some planning as well, just so they're confident that their family is going to be looked after and things will be dealt with how they wish them to be dealt with. What I think is the more important piece is the actual underlying assets, because a lot of private clients are actual owners and managers of their own family businesses.
Indeed, yes.
And they should probably be thinking about making, if they haven't already done, or reviewing their existing wills, just to make sure that how those shares in the family businesses will be dealt with. How are they actually going to be allocated? Who's going to take over the family business when they're no longer around? And I think they should be thinking about this, particularly in the context of shareholders agreement as well, to make sure their family are able to take the shares, even if their will says they can, just to make sure that that's possible. But I think the other important thing that is often overlooked is looking at the lasting power of attorney.
Yes, lasting power of attorney, very important. What sort of matters do you think should be included in an LPA for a business owner?
Well, I suppose it depends on whether they're looking to cover their health situation or their financial situation. Obviously, there may be a time when they're just of unsound mind, that they don't have the capacity to make decisions, and they'd like the decision about what happens to them on their health side.
Sure.
The other more relevant one, maybe for their family business, will be dealing with their financial situation. It might be they're concerned about who will be able to make decisions about buying or selling their assets, who's going to deal with their tax affairs, who could actually hand over financial information to relevant bodies, and really just knowing that someone sensible and responsible is going to be making good decisions on behalf of them and their family.
Yeah, very important, very important. On another matter you mentioned right at the beginning, why is succession planning so important in your view?
I think it's important because often when we talk about succession planning, we are only finding that some clients are thinking about who's going to get what assets. But I think there's actually a better discussion, a better business discussion to be had way before that, and way before the purely mechanical decision of where do assets go. But it's really, how do you ensure a smooth transition for that next generation, for your family members to take over your business? The recent PwC Family Business Survey in fact found that only 12% of family firms make it to a third generation.
Good
and only,
yes,
and only 1% make it to a fifth.
Good grief.
So I think succession planning is really important, because something about those stats say that there's a failing in being able to hand down to generations.
Substantial failing.
It seems so. So obviously succession planning and thinking about your business is absolutely critical to my mind. Especially when our stats also show that only 13% of family firms have a documented and discussed succession plan. So sometimes there may be a plan in place, but the current leaders of the family haven't actually told the next generations what that plan is.
Right.
And interestingly, in fact, that 61% of that next generation also believe that it's going to be difficult for the current generation to let go. So having good business conversations with your family and with the people you want to take the business over is probably going to impact on how successful that legacy is going to be for the business that people have put a lot of effort into to grow.
So the watchword there is probably as soon as possible.
Absolutely. But also clear discussions, and sort of written down, make it clear, even agree how things might happen, particularly as there may be some decisions that will be difficult for the family to hear.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Right, well the last matter that you mentioned that we will have a quick chat about is immigration. red hot topic at the moment for lots of reasons. So what is changing with the immigration rules that you feel is important?
Well, I think I've only got a few minutes to talk generally, so trying to narrow it down to what is changing might be tricky.
Yes.
But in the private client context, I mean, I think the key thing is actually the increased focus on the free movement of people across Europe in particular. Countries are looking to control their borders in the wake of terrorist attacks, in the way of refugee crises, and really just trying to understand how they can monitor and how they can work out who is entitled to and who should be entitled to come into the country and then remain in the country. You know, lots of people are looking at the suspension of the Schengen Agreement.
Yes.
There are some countries who are passing referendum or asking their public to vote on whether they should be closing their borders or restricting migration across Europe, irrespective of the fundamental principle of free movement of people. So I think that's probably as hot a topic as anything, and I think it impacts businesses because the ability to move around your businesses across Europe or attract talent into the UK from elsewhere across Europe has been taken for granted for so long.
Indeed. This business of attracting talent from external sources, I mean, how does the immigration situation sit with investment and so on from countries outside the EU?
Well, at the moment there's a couple of routes. There's effectively an investor and an entrepreneur route. The investor route is pretty well settled. I think the rules changed in November 2014, so that an investment of £2 million into government bonds or making a loan to the government would entitle you to come into the country as an investor and actually look to invest in the UK and businesses and remain in the UK to do so. I think the more challenging one, particularly in the light of the Migration Advisory Council's consultation and recommendations, is the entrepreneurs. And historically, the government have looked at what's the business, what's the entrepreneur like who's coming in. I think there's been question marks about the quality of some of the businesses that have been invested in, and there's almost seeing the entrepreneur route as a investor light version because the financial threshold to come in is much lower. And I think they're thinking that there should probably be more business experts looking at the business plan. Is this actually a viable entrepreneurial business? Is it the sort of business we want to attract into the UK?
Yeah, okay. So basically more information.
More information, and particularly I think it's going to be looking at nationals of certain countries as well. I think they're going to find it much harder. So we know that Russia, CIS and Chinese investors, they're going to have more questions asked of them. So the authorities are going to want to know about their source of funding, what they're going to do when they come into the UK, and that's going to lead to delays actually coming into the country, being able to invest in the UK. So I think trying to balance the need to say that UK PLC is open with those concerns about source of funds, transparency, is going to mean that actually getting those visas and being entitled to come into the country is much more difficult.
Excellent. Okay, Stuart, well that's very kind, very useful, very informative. Thank you very much.
And my pleasure.